everyone, thanks for tuning in. Today I am going to talk about what you might expect at your first 12-step meeting. Stay tuned. Alright, this isn't a topic I've jumped into in videos before, so I'm really excited to do that, but I certainly talk about this with clients a lot. And at the outset, I want to be clear, I'm not doing this video or speaking from experience as a sponsor or an active participant in a 12-step program. I'm speaking as a 12-step facilitator, which means a therapist who has experience from the 12-step program through some lived experience of attending some meetings, talking with clients in their experience, and familiarizing myself with the 12-step program in order to be able to provide you with this information. Of course, probably a very good tool if you have that resource in your life would be to talk to somebody who has participated in a 12-step program, because they will also be able to help guide you and prepare you for what it might be like to step into your first meeting. As a healthcare provider, I can certainly remember the first AA meeting that I ever went to, and since then I've been to some AA meetings, some NA meetings, and some ACOA meetings. What do all of these acronyms even mean? AA is the quintessential 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous. It was the first one ever founded in the 1930s by a couple of fellows who realized the power of peer support in connection and helping them with their sobriety and their recovery journey. And since then, the 12-step program has grown in immensity. It's an international program that you can find in most countries in the world. There's now a lot of virtual meetings that are available, and also AA has kind of split off that there's many different 12-step programs for many different aspects of addiction. So NA is Narcotics Anonymous, which would be for people who are struggling with drugs, which can include any street drugs, opiates, marijuana, prescription medication. They also take a more broad view of just talking about addiction, which some people, even those who struggle primarily with alcohol, tend to like. There are also different programs such as EA, which is Emotions Anonymous, for people who are struggling with an unmanageable relationship with anger, fear, shame, depression, just their emotional world that they would like some support on. There's a variety of eating and food-based 12-step groups. So there's OA, which is Overeaters Anonymous. There's FA, which is Food Addicts Anonymous. And then there's ABA, which is Anorexic and Bulimics Anonymous. And there may even be some different 12-step programs that have grown in your area that might be specific to these or other issues. There's also some relationship and sex and love based 12-step programs. So the main ones that I'm familiar with are CODA, which is the Codependence Anonymous group. And there's SLAA, which is the Sex and Love Addicts Anonymous group. And there's also SA, which is Sexaholics Anonymous, and SAA, which is Sex Addicts Anonymous. I know all of this just sounds like words probably at this point, but for those of you who are curious, you may want to start doing some light Googling or internet searching to see what the differences are. There are some subtle and in some cases pretty big differences in the approach to recovery amongst these different groups. So if you're looking for more of the food or the sex-based groups, you may want to get some idea of the different platforms to recovery and the different approaches of the 12-step programs to just see which one you're gravitating to the most and which one you feel you would be most comfortable attending. Now, there's also the question of when you first attend a meeting, do you go virtually or do you go in person? Honestly, I would say do the one that's most comfortable for you. For some people, online virtual meetings is a more comfortable point of entry for that first meeting and even for subsequent meetings. Whereas for others, they really want to do the in-person meeting and have that experience of being in a room with other people with lived experience. There's no right or wrong with that. It really is more about comfort and personal preference. And as a healthcare provider, I would say whatever gets you in the door, whether that's the virtual door or the physical door, I would encourage you to go for it. It takes a lot of courage and a lot of strength, and there can be a lot of feelings that come in entering that room for the first time. And so whatever helps to make that process a bit easier for you, I really hope that you'll take advantage of that. That might also include inviting along a friend or a loved one to come with you or be with you as you participate in that first meeting. You may not have them come every time because you might start to find that almost feels like it's interfering with your personal process, but that can definitely be comfortable to help facilitate that first entry point to meetings. So when we first go to a meeting, even I felt so nervous. So I have so much compassion and understanding and respect for people who have been struggling and living in that shame and that fear for so long that they walk in those doors or log into that meeting for the first time. You have probably limited idea of what to anticipate, and it really does feel like walking into a new culture, a new environment, a new world. And there's some protocols in that culture that you probably wouldn't be familiar with walking in the door. So some starter tips I do like to provide to people, and I'll share those with you today. The first one is, at your initial meetings, you do not actually need to share. And this is true at any point in time. If you're feeling too overwhelmed, or if you're really having a bad day and it was more than enough effort to actually get to that meeting and log into that meeting, that feels like enough for you for that day, that's totally okay. When you're a brand new newcomer to the meeting, you will be asked at the beginning if there's any newcomers, and likely you would raise your hand and identify yourself in that way. And I find that most meetings then will sort of shift some energy and some focus to the newcomer. So you might notice that people are sort of looking at you or tailoring their shares towards you as they speak. And this is not meant to be an intimidating or a scary thing. It's very much meant to be a welcoming thing, to say, we see you, we understand you, welcome to the group and to the program. It can feel a little bit intimidating or uncomfortable for some people. So just trying to remind yourself that they're here, they're sharing for themselves, they're finding benefit from that. They're also trying to welcome you into the group, which is a really beautiful thing. You can also say, if you're called on to share, that you can just share your name. Hi, I'm Paige. You can share that you're an alcoholic or a codependent or whatever, if you feel comfortable. Otherwise, you can just say your name and then just say, thanks, but I'm going to pass today, or I'm just going to listen. And then the conversation will move on to other people who are wanting to share. So really trying to just give yourself permission in those first meetings to show up, listen, get a sense of the culture, the routine, how things are going to flow. Most meetings start off with some readings from whatever meeting-specific literature the group upholds. You might be asked to participate in doing some reading, which again is up to you if you want to volunteer for that or if you want to decline any invitation to share. There's no must-haves or must-dos in any of these groups or programs. That participation is completely on your terms within your boundaries. Some meetings have different structures. Some meetings will follow kind of an open topic format. Other meetings follow certain literature. They might read a passage from a certain book, and people will base their sharings off of that. Some meetings are step meetings, so they will go through the different steps one by one, and people will cater their sharings based on that. Again, there's no right or wrong, better or worse when it comes to these structures. You just might notice that if you participate in different meetings at different places at different times, that they're organized a little bit differently. So it'll be up to you to just keep paying attention to how you feel, what sort of formats you're gravitating to, and the energy of the group. So that's a big part of it, just like in counseling, is about that rapport. So are you vibing with the people, the messaging, the format? All of these things are important to take into account. As a side note, though, I will say that addiction is such a powerful force that it will be fighting tooth and nail when you go to your initial meetings, because it does not want you to be in those groups. So anticipate resistance. Your brain will not want you there. Your brain will want you to be out that door as a shot, won't even want you in the room in the first place. So make sure that you're really trying to internally coach yourself to pay attention for similarities between your story and other people's, and really trying to look for what you're getting out of that group, what you like about it, what's working, because your brain will actively be on the hunt for differences, reasons to not come back. And so really challenging yourself to know, my brain does not want me to be here, but obviously there's a reason that you're there, and that will be important to really grasp onto. I would also suggest going to the same meeting at least 3 to 5 times, just to really give it an honest go to see, was there just maybe something about that energy, the people and their mood that one time that maybe didn't fit for you exactly, or is it something about that meeting? And even if one meeting at one time and one location doesn't feel like a fit, try other ones. So I do encourage people to survey different meetings, and that might also give you the opportunity to play around with in-person versus virtual meetings and kind of play around with that formatting as well. Once you're there, there is a culture of openness. People will provide phone numbers and their contact information for you, usually along same gender lines. So people who identify as men will provide their phone numbers to others who identify as men, and same on the other continuum. There are also specialized meetings for different populations, including women's only meetings, men's only meetings, LGBTQ2S+ meetings, and different ones maybe for younger people. So there might be some age caps, there might be specific language-based meetings, and those will all be indicated in the meeting list that you're looking at in your local area. So there's a bunch of different acronyms that you'll see, different letters, which all signify different things about that meeting. So try and familiarize yourself with that, just to try to minimize that awkward experience of showing up to a meeting and finding out you don't even speak the language of the meeting, or it's not the gender that you identify with, or something like that, which can be a bit dispiriting because it again takes so much effort to attend that first time, that you do want to try to set it up to be as easy entry and smooth as possible. The one other thing I'll say about that is that some meetings are open and some meetings are closed. Open meetings, the O, means it's open to anybody. So healthcare providers, family members, friends, people who don't necessarily identify as having addiction or the problem that that meeting addresses are more than welcome to participate in those meetings. Closed meetings are the meetings that are just for people who identify having issues with that particular aspect of addiction that the meeting addresses. I would also recommend, if you're at an in-person meeting, and if virtually, if this exists, to participate in the after meeting socialization. So just hang around, chat a little bit with people. This is also how some of those peer support relationships and a sponsor relationship may start to build, that you might start to find a little bit more close personal connection, and that will make it more likely that you'll attend meetings again and that you'll feel connected and want to keep participating. The whole point of 12-step support is to have other peers who understand what you're going through. The 12-step program has a really robust program within it to explore self, explore addiction, explore some of those vulnerabilities that led you to where you are. I know that it gets a lot of slack out there because there's been some peer sort of studies that show maybe it's not as helpful, but then others show that it is. It's really a matter of personal preference. It doesn't have to be your pathway to recovery, but if you do decide to go in that direction, I hope you'll find some of these sort of acknowledgements useful. Go in with an open mind, go in recognizing that your brain is and your addiction is going to be fighting it, and just do your best to be open and give this a thorough shot as a potential tool for your recovery. And even if at a certain point in time it's not seeming so helpful, put it on the shelf. don't chuck it in the garbage bin, because you never know, maybe a few months, a few years, even a few decades down the road, you might come back to that and find utility in it as a tool. I wish you all the best in your journey of recovery. I hope that this is somewhat helpful information, and I hope that you'll keep seeking out more information about the 12 steps, about groups, and about that program from people in your life, online, any resources that you can to support you and aid you in your journey. All the best. Take care. Bye for now.